Oh, job done. Cheers to that. Oh, because, everybody in the football world would have predicted Aston Villa's safe passage out of Group E, and most would have said, well, you're going to win the group. This group was horrendous to navigate. It was not easy, and the game on Thursday was not straightforward either, because we were playing a very proud, disciplined, and organized team. And, had they found a late winner, we would have needed some deep tie-breaking procedures. As it is, we can breathe. We can look forward to the weekend, because the next time Aston Villa will compete in this competition, it will be sometime in March in a round of 16 knockout game. Oh, let's review Zrinjski Mostar 1, Aston Villa 1. Welcome inside the Parlour, where there is a heavy sense of relief and accomplishment and anticipation for the festive period in the air. I turn into a child at this time of year. But before we get into the Zrinjski Mostar game, Dean Smith was officially appointed as the new coach of Charlotte FC in Major League Soccer this week. And my initial reaction, I'm being truthful here, was, oh, Dino, has your coaching stock fallen that far that you've had to take on a very new MLS club? Because, the bottom third of the Premier League and the top third of the championship is a long way away from MLS. But then I started thinking about it. His son Jamie is playing for a club in the United Soccer Leagues. That's a tier below, very close by. I didn't realize the family had a vacation home in Myrtle Beach. Nice job, because the Carolinas and that part of the country is beautiful. Cuisine, climate, fishing, golf, all of it. And if he can get his coaching staff on board with his adopted assistant, Pamuduka, a guy I'm very familiar with, interesting guy. His sporting director is a guy named Zoran Kreneta. If he gets those guys on board and he gets the fans on side, because they were in the playoffs last year. This is a new franchise, basically. This is nothing close to a cold, windy night in Stoke. I mean, this is one of the biggest stadiums in the league with one of the biggest fan bases in the league. If he can put his cultural fingerprints on this club, that's his shtick. What are we all about? What are the three words we stand for? If he can make that happen, I'm telling you what, this could be a really great opportunity for him. And obviously, I'm all in on Charlotte FC now. I always appreciate the comments you leave in these videos, and I found it interesting from the Arsenal game how many people commented on this idea that the team sort of follows the behaviors of its manager, and in Unai Emery's case, that behavior is just very professional, very courteous, and the players' deportment towards referees and match officials in general is good and not adversarial, and that may have a long-term effect in the way the game is officiated. And I found this recently. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's the finable offenses under the Unai Emery regime, and some of them are quite expensive. Like if you're late for the coach to the game, $1,000. Other fines are calculated by the minute, and players in a team environment, they're looking at their watch, they're counting the money, hoping that a player is late, because usually fines go back in towards the team. But if you get a card for dissent, you're fined. And if you get sent off, you have to buy the entire team dinner within a certain time frame. Everybody has some kind of a fines structure and system, but it is interesting to me what offenses this club prioritizes. And I think, again, that says a lot about our classy, elegant leader, Unai Emery. Welcome officially to the Holy Trinity show, where generally we pick through the three key moments or issues that defined Zrinjski Mostar 1, Villa 1, but I'm going to mix things up a little bit for this show. And we'll start with the key numbers as always. If you didn't watch the game, you'd look at these stats and wonder how bad must Villa have been that they couldn't turn all this possession into something a little bit more comfortable, but we all knew exactly what was going to happen in this game. A low block, very disciplined, a lot of sideways passing, a lot of patience, and that's exactly how it turned out. And I'm way more inclined to say fair play Zrinjski rather than shame on you Villa, especially with the 8 changes Unai Emery made from the Arsenal game. And just on that point, the only real surprise for me was the absence of Longley and Robin Olsen. Both must be struggling with something. Alex Moreno also did get the nod over Luca Dean, but both he and Jacob Ramsey were withdrawn an hour in, so that is textbook post-injury recovery, build back minutes type strategy. Rather than talking about the 3 key issues or moments, for that matter, that defined this game, I think it's more important to identify 3 pretty major things that Aston Villa accomplished by getting the draw and also topping Group E. And that starts with meaningful managed minutes for numerous players, starting with the guys that have been on the fringes. You've got to keep your squad engaged at all times because you don't know when an injury or a suspension might come around. And so for Leander Dendoncker and John Duran, there's 90 minutes under their belt where they feel like they have a role, they can contribute, it's good for their confidence, familiar with their teammates and a game day routine again. Big bonus. And then you were able to hand debuts to a couple of youngsters like Philip Marshall and Tommy O'Reilly, who didn't put a foot wrong. Really, they didn't get a whole lot of chances to prove themselves. But still, it's game equity. It's a professional environment. It's being in and around it. That can't be bad. And then for the guys who are expected to start on Sunday, well, A, it's a rest for guys like Ollie Watkins. John McGinn did get some minutes, so he was allowed to get in and keep warm. And sure enough, he set up the 1-0 goal, but we managed to insulate them a little bit so that they are ready to go on Sunday. Tick, tick, tick. The second really big thing we managed to accomplish from Thursday night was watching Nicolo nick one as Zaniolo scored his first goal for Aston Villa. And yes, he would have probably still frustrated some fans in that game, but I'm not going to lie to you. I had a funny feeling that he was going to contribute something meaningful to this game, and he actually set up a couple of good chances, and he took his goal very, very well. And I found his reaction to the goal and his celebration more fascinating than anything else, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I started thinking about what it must be like to be Nicolo Zaniolo. I mean, here you are chasing your dream in the Premier League as a loanee, which means the club that owns you is actually happy for you to not be with them, but to be over here, and they're paying for that as well. And then if you're here, you're wondering, well, is my loan going to get extended? Am I going to get bought out? There's uncertainty kind of hanging over your head, and I don't think players perform best with uncertainty. And then just from a contribution standpoint, he had not scored or assisted on a goal since he's arrived, and he's had this habit of turning the ball over and over, which has earned him a lot of criticism, which I think is justified. And in a numbers and stats heavy world of football now, it's hard to ignore those things. So when he scored, I thought maybe he would exhibit some unbridled expression of joy, as if he had pulled this giant 400-pound gorilla off his back finally to get the goal, the breakthrough for his team. And instead, his body language was, yeah, I've scored before, I scored now, and I'm going to score it again. Very muted celebration. To that I say, fair play to the guy. And even his teammates didn't make a big deal out of him getting his first goal for Villa. Did you notice that? You know, players who are brought in to score goals or provide creative moments live and die on confidence. And the one thing you can say about Nicolo Zaniolo is I don't think he's short on confidence. Is it possible that maybe he has a little bit too much of it? Otherwise, why would he try the more difficult things at times, which is when he tends to turn the ball over? But what if Unai Emery does harness him a little bit and gives him the time and is patient with him? And all of a sudden, this one goal on Thursday turns into an assist and then another goal the following week. And what if more things come off and his teammates become more confident with him? And what if in a couple of weeks or months, we see a player who's showing the signs of a Leon Bailey right now? Maybe we shouldn't write this cat off just yet. Fair play to the traveling Villa supporters as well, stuck way up high in their little cage at the back of that stadium. I mean, what an adventure that would have been. I had a work colleague who was from that region. She always said, "Oh, Peter, it's beautiful." And it looks beautiful. And Paul Handsaker of 24/7 Services was not among the traveling faithful. However, I'm sure that Paul might have done a cheeky little price check on flights and what kind of beer they drink and where you get it. But December is not slowing down for 24/7 Services right now. No, electrical problems, plumbing catastrophes, leaks, they do not work or occur around the festive period. And I'm also happy to report that Paul is still receiving a lot of inquiries from this show, for which I'm very grateful. Peter Beale wrote, "I would love for Paul and 24/7 Services to come work on my property, but I live 5,250 miles away in California. Please, oh please, Villa, one day, please do a preseason in California. I know the time difference is another 3 hours and that's a factor, but there's nothing like California. There's nothing like swaying palm trees and 25 degrees Celsius and breezy by the beach every single day." And obviously, the biggest thing we accomplished on Thursday was topping the table, which was no easy feat when you consider we started this group phase with a loss. Everybody else would have expected Aston Villa to finish first in the group, and it would have been a disaster if we didn't, but football doesn't work that way. This was a landmine of a group when you consider rotating squads and having to manage the Premier League at the same time. And when I reflect back on these 6 games, what I think of is A, how we evolved through the group stages, and B, how professional we were. I mean, think about it. This same opponent, we needed 95 minutes to finally get around or through them to win. We had to come from 1 down to beat Alkmaar at home, and we needed a late-ish goal to beat Legia at home as well. And we did all of this while oftentimes playing against a low block, and we proved to ourselves that we could navigate through teams that set up shop right on the doorstep of their own 18-yard box. And that may come in handy down the line this season when we're hosting some of the lower-ranked teams in the Premier League when they come to Villa Park. Not to mention, we avoid extra fixtures on February 15th and 22nd, which would have been around hosting Manchester United and Nottingham Forest, with an away trip to Fulham in that area as well. So February is still just 4 fixtures for us, FA Cup 5th round notwithstanding, fingers crossed. And then there's the issue of the Europa League third-place teams dropping down into that special playoff, which includes some pretty good names: Olympiacos, Ajax, Alex Moreno's old team in Real Betis. We avoid that quagmire entirely. And we accomplished all those things by surviving some serious scares as well, like that time that Philip Marshall booted the ball off of Callum Chambers' back. How that didn't go in there, I have no idea. And there was another chance in the second half too, where I thought, Zrinjski probably should have scored. This was a team that was up for it. They're not just representing their badge, their club, and their city. They're kind of representing all of Bosnia Herzegovina. They're proud. And the biggest game they'll ever play in their lives, club-wise, was a third-place team from the Premier League at home in Aston Villa, and they were up for it. They're also in this managerial transition right now, so fair play to them. Huge sense of relief for me that we managed to get through that, especially because those Legia, who are not going to be having traveling fans for at least 5 games, were just 1 goal behind us in the table because they were winning 2-0 against Alkmaar. So now that we've navigated that viper pit of Group E in the Europa Conference League, and specifically Zrinjski Mostar, we now can look forward to yet another horrendous occasion when we visit Brentford on Sunday. Do you know that we have not won at Brentford since 1953? Can that be right? Am I reading these things correctly? That sounds like a bogey team to me, just like Bournemouth. What is it with us and clubs that start with the letter B? But it's also at a time when the Bees are going through a rather hairy injury crisis. Obviously, Ivan Toney's still suspended, but now Bueno is out with an ankle problem to the end of January. No Schade, De Silva, Jensen, Hickey, Collins, Henry, Ayer. That's a long list to the point where Neil Mopai might be forced to start for Brentford. So if ever there was a time when we might be able to end this ridiculous duck we're on, Sunday might be it, even though we're missing our own significant players. It does feel like Alex Moreno is ready to start a Premier League game again, doesn't it? Which is a relief because, of course, Luca Dean is suspended for the game on Sunday. So is Douglas Luiz, but you'd have to think John McGinn just slides back into his old position right in the middle of the park to play alongside Boubacar Kamara. Does that mean Jacob Ramsey plays out on the left and maybe Yuri Tielemans, who wasn't even in the squad on Thursday, playing on the right? Leon Bailey seems to be winning the battle between he and Moussa Diaby right now, and our back line seems pretty solid. It's just a matter of, does Matt Cash come in at right back? Or is it Konza with Diego Carlos? Lots of options, but it seems like we're getting closer to full fitness, save for Buendia and Mings. It's a short show today. I apologize for that, but there's so much happening right now. I've just come back from my youngest son's final elementary school Christmas concert. Oh, bless. And this is such a busy time with shopping and cooking and entertaining and all those things. I'm just very grateful to be able to do all those things, quite frankly, and to have been chosen by a beautiful football club like Aston Villa, and to be able to have you over for one of these, even if it's just virtually, and to be able to look forward to and dream about knockout European football in the late stages of winter come March. Until Sunday and the trip to Brentford, be well, and as always, up the mighty Villa!